Alrighty, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is LaughNgamez here. I'm back with another Starcraft 2 1 versus 1 bot AI cast. We have got ourselves a match that I'm very excited for. It is going to be NegativeZero, the Protoss bot, top bot, taking on Eris. And I was thinking, like, why am I so excited to cast these two bots? And the answer is they are both just incredibly well-rounded and have just phenomenal depth, no matter the situation they're both in. We rarely see them get cheesed out and not have a reaction, something like that. And then they're just very dynamic in the mid to late game. So I'm excited to see how these two match up against each other here on Leylines. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, before we get too far into this one, make sure to go ahead, click that like button if you haven't already. If we can get 100 likes on this video for Eris and NegativeZero, that would be amazing. Leave a comment down below saying more bots if you want to see more of these bot matches. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because I bet you can't find another YouTube channel where there's daily bot casts. And yeah, consider becoming a YouTube member or checking out the links in the description if you want to support. And just one more thing, do join the Discord, because there probably will be some announcements soon as far as tournaments, things like that going on. And yeah, you can also just say hi. And that is that. We've had our scout from NegativeZero, very cool pathing on the probe as always. Eris is a Zerg bot, so it does get to make use of those overlords to get the info it needs. As the overlord goes on in, probably gonna check for a nexus, and it'll say, hey, look at that. I think Eris sometimes even prints when there's like an expo, but look at that. The overlord gets the info it needs, then heads to a safe location. That is something as an author of a Zerg bot that you can do, is to tell where those safe spots are for your overlords and make sure they get to one of those nice locations. Behind this, though, we do have the third base going up for Eris. Drones on the way. Just enough gas to get speed started, and then just squeezing out drones. That is what Eris does. It is bottlenecked heavily by larva in the early game, I believe, as it really just can pump them out with the speed mining. We have got a Stargate going up for NegativeZero, so potentially going to be playing with Phoenix and Oracle. Looks like a Scouting Ling must have got in, but was killed off. Was it the Adept that killed it or a Probe? The Adept does have a kill, so the Adept did kill off that Scouting Ling. And then we have got that Adept crossing the map now. We'll see if it's able to get anything done. As a Ling moves out for Eris trying to get info, it does pay attention to the fact that there's a shade. And now the Queens will have to respond. Look at that. Queen coming down for Eris prior to the Adept getting near it. That's just great anticipation. And then the Lings are trying to stay on top of this Adept. So the Adept gets shown the door, and it looks very similar to how a human match would go. The Zerg defending early game with just a few Lings and Queens, although this time Eris doesn't react to that Adept rolling on in. But look at that, the drones, they just pull away. And this is it almost loses a drone, but not quite. The Adept may go down, not quite again. Oh, it goes into the main base and then does die. So the Adept gets sacked, not a single drone lost there. We take a look. There is quite a few bruised ones, but it's just one of those things as a bot author. Eris is programmed so that it doesn't just run all the drones away when there's a threat. So many bots that are less developed will say, hey, there's something in the mineral line, and the workers will scatter like somebody yelled fire in a crowded building, and then, yeah. But Eris, it doesn't lose that mining. It just pulls back the injured ones. That's just like such a smart programming decision, and that's the kind of thing you have to do if you want to take on a top Protoss bot like NegativeZero. NegativeZero has Warp Gate finishing on up. We have got one Ling for Eris in the main base, still causing problems. Probe zapping away. These Lings, they are just independent and alive, scouting around. It's again, very cool. Look, the Ling's not going to attack on in when it will get potentially killed by a probe zap. But then once it regains a little bit of HP, it might go for a Ling or for a probe, but it doesn't get there. So NegativeZero cleans that up. We do have a few air units out, an Oracle, a Void Ray, and then we're going into a Robo Bay for NegativeZero, the third base getting saturated up. Meanwhile, Eris securing up its fourth base. Ley Lines is a bit of a unique map. We do have this Rich Vespine Geyser, which cannot be secured. NegativeZero, whoa, 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 whoa. What's going on here? We're actually going to do a rare rewind. Oh, 2 probes for NegativeZero. Ended up chasing one of these Lings, and this is the power of the Ling. And this is probably why having a leash range on your probes might be a good idea. Not that that can't ever be exploited, but we see these 2 probes for NegativeZero were actually dragged across the map by the Ling of Eris. And this is, yeah, just one of the strengths of Eris is just how it controls those individual Lings. They try to be as much of a nuisance as possible. It's like a fly. It'll be buzzing around you, but then when you go to swat it, it just gets right out of the way. And there's not much more frustrating than that. NegativeZero taking a small bit of economic damage. It is defending against a little bit of a Ling attack as the Protoss bot is defending this third base, but no pylons, no batteries there just yet. We are actually getting a second Oracle for NegativeZero, so that's exciting. These Oracles have a lot of potential due to that energy recharge. They're just very good for providing vision. NegativeZero sends a Zealot, sends a Observer out to secure that fourth base, as that was blocked by a single Ling. It'll be very interesting to see whether the meta on the base blocking goes any further, because there definitely is opportunity for the Zerg to potentially try and go, like, I mean, there's always opportunity if you want to try and snipe one particular opponent, which, who knows, NegativeZero and Eris, I'm sure there is some tweaks just with each other specifically in mind, but that fourth base thing is something that could potentially be exploited. I think just the fact that it is a single Zealot going to clean up that base. Who knows, if there's a few more Lings coming in, maybe the Zealot could be picked off. Maybe you could even program your Lings to just run in and out of the base, and the Zealot would never be able to allow that expansion to get up. Lings for Eris are active once again. The just decision-making on these Lings is quite good as they just try and find any opportunity they can get. So far, not amounting to too much, as the fourth base for NegativeZero is going up. A few more Lings do come on in to be a nuisance. Probes are like, oh gosh, here we go again, as a few of them do actually go down. So very good harassment by Eris, as the Lings are doing the heavy lifting while the Zerg just macros up behind this. The Lings, they do engage onto the Zealots. Not the best engagement, but then they do actually retreat once they realize the effort is futile. And then look at that, Lings hitting in multiple locations here for the Zerg bot. So just keeping NegativeZero quite busy. Major nuisance here. The cannons getting up is a big deal at this third base, because otherwise those Lings will just harass endlessly, and even the best programming for bots has a difficult time responding to just continued harassment. So the cannons are a very practical choice by NegativeZero's author. We're getting a fifth base for the Protoss. The Zerg, meanwhile, is just getting up to its fifth base. So actually a very quick expo compared to the Zerg for NegativeZero. Eris, though, is just about maxed out. And look at this. We're getting a Lurker Den on the way. All sorts of tech. I've barely been looking at at Eris's side of the map, but here we go. It has built up an army and is now attacking on in. NegativeZero could be in a bit of trouble. It's pulling back. It's got a Colossi and a Mortal kind of out and a little too far away from home, I think. The Void Ray is retreating from the Hydras and the Roaches, as there is enough anti-air to deal with that. Oracles do come in. Zealots with charge moving in on top of this army. The Oracles popping the Pulsar Beam as NegativeZero pulls its army together in an incredible engagement. Not much more you could ask for NegativeZero to do with the units it has. Unfortunately, those Oracles do end up going down, which is quite painful, but I think there's enough Protoss here to defend this attack. The concern is, though, that Eris, being the macro beast it is, it's got 95 drones. It's already approaching Remax, and I think it was for a moment until it did continue to attack in. Eris might just want to take a breather for a moment to let its production catch up and to reform this death ball. But look at this. Corruptors are now out on the map for the Zerg bot. We have got Eris just, yeah, pumping out more and more units. There is lurkers on the way. This is exciting. This is not something we've seen a lot of from Eris, but adding in the lurkers is a big development here. Probably a unit that's underexplored in bots, and if any bot's going to do it well, it's probably Eris. So the Zerg bot gathering on NegativeZero's doorstep. Observers are easy pickings for the Corruptors and Overseers. NegativeZero does need to keep pumping those out. Upgrade-wise, it's +2 attack against 1-1 for the Zerg, so even. Then we got 3-1 on the way for NegativeZero, 2-2 on the way for Eris, so upgrades will remain even throughout this game. We're getting Disruptors on the way. The Protoss, meanwhile, is taking a new base. I'm not sure if I miscounted the bases earlier. I apologize if I did. Corruptors chasing a Colossi, but it's just chilling on a battery. Not enough anti-air. The Colossi wants to join the fight, but that does allow it to eat some more shots and then go down. We're having Fungals now added into the mix. Lurkers sieging on the doorstep. They do not have the range upgrade just yet, I believe. Yeah, there's the Seismic Spines on the way now. That's a big upgrade to watch. I believe bot authors have commented on things like that in the past, and that they do generally treat units that have range upgrades like Colossi, like Lurkers, in the sense that they always have that upgrade researched, which is a conservative approach, but probably something that's worth doing. Let's see, Roach is coming in for Eris, attacking towards NegativeZero, actually killing off an Immortal. The Protoss bot trying to move out, and this is where NegativeZero usually gets its success against Eris, when it is hitting in multiple locations, but it hasn't had that chance yet because Eris has been being so darn aggressive this game. We're having a Disruptor get abducted, not enough of a follow-up there, as NegativeZero is trying to smack Eris down. Eris, which got quite aggressive here. High-value infestors are very far forward. There's Colossi, there's Immortals, as NegativeZero has ridiculous gateway production. We see a very nice fungal going down, another very nice fungal, but there's just not enough to follow up on it here for Eris. So the Zerg does bleed off a lot of supply. NegativeZero now actually ahead in supply compared to Eris, and this is where the game could get very concerning for the Zerg. Corruptors do grab a Colossi, which is nice. The Zerg is now on the defense. These bot games are so often decided on a good defense, and the sort of back and forth between just defender's advantage is quite significant. Now, Eris has a nice Hydra Ball. NegativeZero kind of strung its army out a little bit. We see the army for NegativeZero is quite split, which often does it well, but that did allow a few units to be picked off here. Hydra's now responding, chasing after Stalkers. NegativeZero is trying to do what it does best, in that it has been disrupting mining at this location. Eris, though, will clean it up because there isn't enough pressure going on elsewhere. We're now getting a Templar Archives on the way, another Stargate, as NegativeZero adds on more production. We can see 5 Robos is a good amount, I think. I'm not sure it will need any more, so we'll keep eyes on that. Stargates going up is important because we are now getting Broodlords from Eris. Is there any Lurkers left? The answer is no, as Eris is going to be meeting NegativeZero in the middle of the map. An Observer gets picked off. Fungal growth goes down. Disruptor throws out a Nova. Eris immediately scatters. We see the beautiful machine split from Eris as we are getting more yoinks from those Vipers. Corruptors are doing a phenomenal job for Eris, staying on top of the Colossi in this game. The Broodlords provide a solid foundation for the army of Eris. It can kind of just ball up, and then NegativeZero has to play around them. We do get an Immortal abducted. Eris is playing very good this game, as we get a Colossi abducted, knurled, killed. Feedbacks are now present, though, for NegativeZero's Psystorm's being researched. There's 8 High Templar out. 1 Psystorm is done. That's going to be a lot of Storm, a lot of feedback. The feedback could be the more important part because, again, bots can generally split against AoE quite effectively. Now, we are having more upgrades rolling here. NegativeZero is just getting up level 2 shields. No level 2 armor started yet. Eris getting Carapace, getting +1 melee. The melee very important because it means the Broodlings deal more damage once they're on the ground, as the Zerg, though, is being pushed back a little bit. NegativeZero coming in. Look at all these High Templar. Psystorm, 5 seconds out, so not quite ready for this big fight, but Eris could get punished hard once these are done. There's the first Psystorm, but there's the split. Eris is saying, no way, do not walk into that Psystorm. Another Psystorm goes down. The Zerg army instantly splits, and look at that, just Psystorm's effectiveness against a bot like Eris is questionable. NegativeZero can use those as a very powerful zoning tool. We do see feedbacks going down on those high-value spellcasters. Look at it. Feedback just instant, and it's very powerful because the feedback range is actually quite high, and it's it's higher than a lot of those spells that the Zerg bot can use. And then, of course, the High Templar can morph into the Archons. Meanwhile, Eris just getting punished a little bit here. It's stepping out. It might get a Broodlord, or pardon me, might get an Archon. But we see Creep has been pushed back. Disruptor kills an Infestor there. The spellcasters are less effective now that there is High Templar out on the map. Look at that. Feedback's just going down again and again. And Eris is going to struggle a little bit here. The Zerg does have a very nice army supply still. But then again, so does NegativeZero. And traditionally, that is where the Protoss gets an advantage. And maybe Eris has had some work done to it that will allow it to play out a late game against NegativeZero. And that would solve a lot of problems for the Zerg when it comes to its #1 competitor. So we'll see as NegativeZero is pushing out feedback again going down. Broodlords are isolated. NegativeZero so good as it pounces on top of them, not wasting any time. There's no Tempest out to deal with Broodlords, and yet they are being dispatched as Eris splits its army ineffectively. The Protoss bot goes very deep. Fungal trying to punish. This Zerg base is probably going to go down. We do have the Zerg army just still not in the perfect position here, and the supply a little bit misleading as a lot of it is caught up in production replacing units that died. So Eris, I mean, its army's not that big on the map right now. It's got 17 roaches, which is an enormous amount of supply on the production tab. We are having units be rebuilt as time goes on. NegativeZero saying tag over gas 1602, which is interesting. I'm not sure if that'll change anything, or it could just be the bot author keeping track of their economic management. If the game slows down for a moment, which I'm not sure it will, we could scout around to see whether there actually is less gas being mined for NegativeZero as a response to that. There's a lot of things these bots are doing well behind the scenes that allows them to play so well. Good. Spore Crawler Forest helping zone out, I guess, the observers, that kind of thing. And just providing a bit of a buffer for the Broodlords, which are sieging away on NegativeZero's army. The Broodlords may be starting to get some value for the first time in this game, it would seem. Where's the rest of the army for Eris? The answer is some of it's trying to respond to this attack towards the north as NegativeZero is bullying the Zerg bot. There is an infestation pit that's a little bit vulnerable. That will mean no more infestors being produced if that goes down. The Broodlords still kind of holding this back line, but NegativeZero is moving forward. Consume being used on some of those buildings to give more energy on these spellcasters. Fungal growth's really softening up some of these Protoss units. Preventing the blink on the Stalkers is massively important, and the Broodlords are just sieging away. Again, the Broodlords are not maxed out on upgrades. They are only getting towards +2 flyer attack now, and that means they actually don't tickle or don't deal as much damage as they could to the Protoss, because like Broodlords, they benefit from attack upgrades, ground and air, quite significantly. It's one of those nuances in Starcraft 2 that you've got to pay attention to. NegativeZero, though, still doing what NegativeZero does best. Eris trying to respond with some roaches, but Immortals and Stalkers are very powerful. There is a Viper on deck, but the Spellcaster's not going to help that much in this situation. The Broodlords are still holding the front, though, which is important because it means Eris can maybe handle this. Look at that. Stalkers blink forward, but maybe the Carapace helping out those Broodlords there, keeping that one alive. This is zoning NegativeZero's main army back, and maybe that means Eris can deal with this harassment, which is basically non-stop. The Zerg does have extra bases, but look at this. NegativeZero now hitting this southern location. Yeah, just denying so much of Eris's mining, and I'm getting a little bit concerned here. Eris needs to deal with this one Immortal so those workers can get back to work. The Immortal's gone. The drones are instantly back to work. We see a bit of contrast there in which it's not just one Adept, so the drones aren't going to keep going business as usual. They're going to wait till it's safe to mine, which does allow opportunity for disruption. The Broodlords still sieging away. Blinding Clouds going down. NegativeZero blinking underneath the Broodlords. Eris is really falling down in supply, though it needs a moment to breathe. It is mining from a few of these bases now. We do have an Oracle come in. The drones actually scatter, despite the Oracle not using its pulsar beam. But just that that disruption of the mining is compounding here because Eris cannot maintain these trades, and its worker count has fallen, and I think NegativeZero is going to be able to take this one as the Zerg supply is falling. An incredible game between these two bots. NegativeZero may have the winning record, but it's quite close, and we can see that there is a lot going on here. Again, it is the multi-prong harassment from NegativeZero that Eris can't seem to solve. I do wonder, maybe a lurker would be the answer to this kind of thing. A lurker at each base could be a big deal. Of course, NegativeZero has very good detection, but who knows? Burrowed unit like that, like for example, there's no detection down with this group here. There is an oracle, so there would be detection, but again, if the lurker's revealed, it can run away, run back in. Maybe there's some advantage there because this is the main problem, it seems, for Eris. We saw it holding the front line, but then as soon as the harassment starts hitting the other bases, it does start a downward trend for the Zerg. NegativeZero playing so well as always. Phenomenal game between these two. And yeah, let me know if you guys want to see more Eris versus NegativeZero, as it is a match that's been cast a few times, but it's always so darn good. These bots are always being developed, and yeah, I'm excited to see how they do in the future as well. So like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I do feel death knocking at my door, though. I think I might be coming down with a cold, so I'm hoping that's not the case, so I can keep commentating throughout the week. But it's one of those things, you know, you just wake up with a bit of a sore throat and you're like, oh man, how cooked am I? So GG, NegativeZero is able to take it. Eris, a respectful bot that does GG, knowing it's all over. And yeah, very well done by NegativeZero. And Eris, of course. Disruptors trying to chase Dennaling. Bots gonna be bots. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.